After years marked by loss and quiet resilience, John Travolta finds himself standing at the edge of a new chapter, one that speaks not of the past, but healing and the possibility of love once again. Following the passing of his wife, Kelly Preston, his life seemed defined by grief and reflection, a period where silence carried more meaning than words. But now, as whispers of a new love begin to surface, the story shifts from sorrow to renewal. Whether confirmed or simply speculated, the idea itself carries weight. It represents a man choosing to move forward, not by forgetting what he lost, but by honoring it to the courage to feel again. In a world quick to judge and quicker to speculate, his journey reminds us that healing is not a straight path, and that opening one's heart after loss is not weakness, but one of the strongest acts a person can make. Time is a way of reshaping even the strongest lives, and for John Travolta, the past few years have been defined by both profound loss and quiet resilience. Known for decades as one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, his life has been lived in the spotlight, but some of his most important moments have unfolded far from it. The passing of his wife, Kelly Preston, in 2020 marked a turning point that changed everything. It was not just a personal loss. It was a loss of a partner, a companion, and a shared life built over many years. In the time that followed, his world seemed to grow quieter. Public appearances became less frequent, and when he did speak, his words carried a sense of reflection rather than performance. Grief has a way of slowing time. It forces a person pause, to look inward, and to process emotions that cannot be rushed. For John Travolta, this period was not about moving on quickly. It was about understanding what it meant to move forward at all. There is a difference between the two, and it is a difference that many people struggled to navigate in the years that followed. He remained focused on his family, particularly his children. They became the center of his attention, the source of his strength, and a reason to continue finding purpose in everyday life. This focus reflects something deeply human, the instinct to hold on to what remains when something irreplaceable is lost. But time does not stand still. Slowly, almost quietly, the idea of a new chapter begins to emerge. The phrase "break silence" suggests a moment of change, a shift from reflection to expression. It does not necessarily mean a dramatic announcement, but rather a subtle acknowledgement that life continues, even after loss. The idea of new love carries its own weight. It is not just about romance. It is about healing. It is about the ability to open one's heart again, despite the fear that comes with it. For someone who has experienced deep loss, this step is never easy. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. For John Travolta, this possible new chapter is not about replacing what was lost. It is about honoring it while still allowing room for something new. Love, in this sense, does not erase the past. It exists alongside it, creating a more complex but also more complete emotional landscape. Public reaction to such stories is often mixed. Some people see it as a positive step forward, a sign of healing and renewal. Others question the timing, the circumstances, or the details. This is the nature of living in the public eye. Every personal decision becomes part of a larger conversation. Yet behind all the speculation, there is a simple truth. No one else can define when a person is ready to move forward. That decision is deeply personal, shaped by individual experiences and emotions that cannot be fully understood from the outside. Another important aspect of this story is the idea of silence itself. Silence is not always empty. It can be full of meaning. It can represent reflection, respect, and the process of healing. When someone chooses to speak after a long silence, it often carries more weight than words spoken freely. The narrative surrounding John Travolta is not just about love. It is about resilience. It is about the ability to endure difficult moments and still find a way to move forward. This kind of resilience is not dramatic or visible. It is quiet, steady, and deeply personal. As the story continues, it becomes less about confirmation and more about possibility. Whether or not a new love is officially defined, the idea itself represents something meaningful. It represents the human capacity to heal, to grow, and to embrace life again after loss. His journey also highlights the difference between public perception and private reality. What the public sees is often only a small part of the full story. The real experiences, the emotions, the decisions, the struggles, exist beyond what is shared. Over time, the focus shifts from the past to the future, not in a way that forgets what came before, but in a way that builds on it. This is how healing works, not by erasing memories, but by integrating them into a new understanding of life. For John Travolta, this process is ongoing. It is not defined by a single moment or announcement. It is shaped by time, by experience, and by the choices he continues to make. In the end, the story is not about a headline or a rumor. It is about something much deeper, the journey of a person learning to live fully again after loss. It is about finding balance between remembering and moving forward, between holding on and letting go. The phrase break silence may suggest a dramatic moment, but the real story is far more subtle. It is found in the quiet steps taken over time, the small decisions that lead to change, and the gradual return to a life that feels whole again. And as this journey continues, one truth becomes clear. Love does not end when life changes. It evolves, it adapts, and sometimes it finds a way to begin again. Because in the end, the most powerful stories are not about what is lost, but about what comes next. And for John Travolta, that story is still being written, one quiet, meaningful step at a time as the story continues to unfold. The journey of John Travolta begins to reflect something even more profound, the quiet strength it takes to rebuild a life after it has been deeply shaken. Loss does not simply disappear with time. It stays, it reshapes memories, and it changes the way a person sees the world. But within that change, there is also the possibility of growth. For years, his life with Kelly Preston represented stability, partnership, and shared dreams. Their relationship was not just a public story. It was a private reality filled with moments that no one else could fully understand. When that chapter ended, it left behind more than memories. It left behind a space that could never truly be filled. And yet, life continues. This continuation is not always easy. It comes with hesitation, with doubt, and with a quiet question of whether it is possible to feel the same kind of connection again. For John Travolta, stepping into the idea of a new love is not about replacing what was lost. It is about allowing himself to experience life fully once more. There is something deeply human in that struggle. Many people face the challenge of moving forward after loss, but doing so in the public adds another layer of complexity. Every step is observed, every decision is discussed, and every possibility becomes part of a larger narrative. But beyond the noise, there is a quieter truth. Healing is personal. It does not follow a schedule, and it does not seek approval. It happens in its own time, in its own way. Another important aspect of this journey is the role of memory. Memories do not fade when a new chapter begins. Instead, they become part of the foundation on which that new chapter is built. For John Travolta, the love he shared in the past continues to exist, even as he considers the possibility of something new. This balance between past and present is what makes the story so powerful. It is not about choosing one over the other. It is about learning to carry both at the same time. This is not easy, but it is possible. As the idea of a new relationship begins to take shape, it brings with a sense of renewal, not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that builds upon it. It reflects a willingness to remain open, to continue experiencing life, and to embrace what comes next. There is also a sense of courage in this step. Opening one's heart again means accepting the risk that comes with it. It means allowing vulnerability to exist once more. And for someone who has experienced deep loss, this is one of the most difficult choices to make. Yet it is also one of the most meaningful as the years pass. His story becomes less about what happened and more about how he responds to it. This shift is important. It moves the focus in the past to the present, from loss to resilience, and from silence to expression. In the end, the journey of John Travolta is not defined by a single moment or a single relationship. It is defined by the way he continues forward, the way he adapts, and the way he finds meaning even in difficult circumstances. And as this story continues, it reminds us of something simple but powerful, that life does not stop after loss. It changes, it evolves, and sometimes it offers new beginnings in the most unexpected ways. Because in the end, the true strength of a person is not measured by what they have lost, but by their ability to keep moving forward, to remain open, and to find hope even after everything has changed. As the story reaches its most reflective stage, the journey of John Travolta begins to feel less like a headline and more like a quiet transformation. What once seemed defined by loss slowly becomes defined by endurance, the ability to carry pain without letting it define the future. There's a certain silence that follows grief, a space where words feel unnecessary and time feels slower. For John Travolta, that silence was not emptiness. It was a period of rebuilding, a time where life had to be understood again, piece by piece, without the presence of Kelly Preston by his side. But even in that silence, life continues to move. The idea of a new love does not arrive suddenly. It grows quietly, almost unnoticed at first. It begins as a shift in perspective, a moment where the future no longer feels closed. For someone who has experienced deep loss, this shift is significant. It represents a return, not to the past, but a possibility. And possibility is powerful. IT does not promise certainty. It does not guarantee happiness, but opens a door, allowing life to expand again. For John Travolta, this door represents something simple yet profound, the chance to feel, to connect, and to live fully once more. There's also a quiet courage in choosing to move forward. It is easy to remain in the comfort of memory, to hold on to what was and avoid what could be. But stepping into something new requires strength. It requires letting go of fear, even when that fear is rooted in love. His journey reminds us that healing is not about forgetting. It is about remembering in a different way. It is about carrying the past with respect, while still making space for the present. This balance is delicate, but it is what allows life to continue with meaning as the world watches and speculates. It is important to remember that the most important parts of the story remain unseen. The conversations, the emotions, the quiet decisions. These are the moments that truly define the journey. They are not captured in headlines, but they're where real change happens. Over time, the focus shifts again, not toward what has been lost, but toward what still remains. Family, purpose, and the simple act of living each day with intention. These are the things that anchor a person, even in the most uncertain times. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of this story. It is not about confirming a relationship or defining a new chapter in clear terms. It is about the willingness to continue, to remain open, and to accept that life is always moving forward. In the end, the phrase break silence is not just about speaking. It is about transformation. It is about the moment when silence gives way to possibility, when reflection turns into action, and when the future begins to take shape again. For John Travolta, that future is still unfolding. It is not fully written, and it does not need to be. What matters is that it exists, that there is still space for growth, for connection, and for something new. Because in the end, the most powerful truth is this: life does not end with loss. It changes, it deepens, and sometimes it finds a way to begin again. And in that quiet, steady beginning, his story continues not as a moment of the past, but as a journey still moving forward, one step at a time. And as the story settles into its final, quiet reflection, the journey of John Travolta becomes something far greater than speculation or headlines. It becomes a testament to what it means to endure, to adapt, and to keep living even when life has been forever changed. What once began as a story of loss slowly transforms into a story of strength, not loud or dramatic, but steady and real. There is something deeply human in the way his life has unfolded over these years. The silence he carried was never empty. It was filled with memory, with love that did not disappear, and with the process of learning how to exist in a world that no longer looked the same. Losing Kelly Preston was not just a moment. It was a shift that changed everything that came after. And yet, within that change, there is movement. The idea of opening his heart again does not erase the past. It honors it. It shows that love, once given, does not end. It evolves. It leaves behind something that continues to live within a person, shaping how they see the world and how they choose to move forward. For John Travolta, this step toward something new is not about replacing what was lost. It is about accepting that life still holds meaning, still holds connection, and still holds a possibility of joy, even after deep sorrow. There's also a quiet bravery in allowing oneself to be vulnerable again. After loss, it is easy to close off, to protect what remains by avoiding what could bring pain. But choosing to remain open, to still believe in connection, is one of the strongest decisions a person can make as time continues. His story becomes less about the question of new love and more about the journey itself. A journey of healing, of reflection, and of slowly rebuilding a sense of normalcy in a life that was once disrupted. This journey does not follow a straight line, and it does not need to. What matters is that it continues. The world may continue to watch, to speculate, and to search for answers. But the real story exists beyond that. It exists in the quiet moments, in the choices made away from attention, and in the gradual return to a life that feels whole again. In the end, the phrase breaks silence carries a deeper meaning. It is not just about speaking. It is about moving forward. It is about stepping out of the stillness of grief and into the uncertain but hopeful space of what comes next. And as everything gently comes to rest, one truth remains. Life does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence, for the willingness to keep going, to keep feeling, and to keep believing that even after loss, there is still something ahead. Because when all is said and done, what defines a person is not the pain they have faced, but the way they rise from it. And in that quiet, steady rise, the story of John Travolta continues, not as a memory of what was lost, but as a living, evolving journey toward what is still possible. And as the story reaches its final stillness, the journey of John Travolta no longer feels like something the world needs to explain. It becomes something the world can simply witness. Not every chapter of life comes with clear answers, and not every truth needs to be spoken loudly to be understood. What began as silence was never emptiness. It was a space filled with memory, with reflection, and with the quiet process of healing after the loss of Kelly Preston. That silence carried weight, but it also carried strength, the kind that builds slowly over time, without needing recognition. And now, as the idea of a new love enters the conversation, it does not stand as a replacement for the past, but as a continuation of life itself. It reflects something deeply human, the ability to feel again, to open up again, and to accept that life, no matter how difficult, continues to move forward. There is a quiet beauty in that continuation. It does not erase what came before. It does not forget the love that once defined so much. Instead, it carries it forward, allowing to exist alongside whatever comes next. This is not about moving on. It is about moving with. For John Travolta, this journey has never been about proving anything to the world. It has been about finding a way to live with meaning, even after everything changed. And that meaning is not found in headlines or speculation. It is found in the quiet choices, the unseen moments, and the steady steps forward. As time continues, the world may keep asking questions, searching for confirmation, looking for details that define this new chapter. But the truth is, the most important parts of this story may never be fully known. And perhaps that is exactly how it should be, because some journeys are not meant to be fully understood from the outside. They are meant to be lived privately and honestly, without the need for constant explanation. In the end, the silence that was once noticed becomes something different. It becomes peace. A space where the past is respected, the present is accepted, and the future remains open. And in that quiet, steady space, his story continues, not as something broken, but as something rebuilt, not as something lost, but as something that has learned to carry loss and still move forward. Because the truest form of strength is not found in avoiding pain, but in learning how to live beyond it. And as everything fades into its final moment, one lasting truth remains. Life does not end when it changes. It simply asks us to change with it. And in that quiet transformation, the story of John Travolta continues, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a calm, enduring strength that speaks louder than words ever could. And when all the words have been spoken, when the questions begin to fade and the noise slowly disappears, the journey of John Travolta remains, not as a story defined by loss, but as one shaped by endurance, by quiet strength, and by the courage to continue. There is something deeply human in the way life unfolds after everything changes. It does not rush forward. It moves slowly, carefully, asking only one thing, that we keep going. And for John Travolta, that forward movement has never been about forgetting Kelly Preston, but about carrying her memory into every step that follows. Because love, once real, does not disappear. It transforms. It becomes part of who we are, shaping how we feel, how we remember, and how we choose to live. And in that transformation, there is space. Space for healing, space for growth, and perhaps space for something new. The idea of a new